Just want to make an announcement before we begin that tonight's learning is dedicated to Little Nishmas Shloima Avram Ben Michal HaKohen Olav Shalom. We're going to go through halachos of Chanukah as much as we can cover in the amount of time that we have. Before that, I just want to make an important notice about this coming Thursday night. This coming Thursday night is when we start saying in davening v'sein tal umatar levracha instead of the same bracha. And that's very important, that change, because it's one of those changes. If a person makes a mistake and says the same bracha instead of the same talamater, they were not shoyel geshamim, they did not make a request for rain, and therefore their davening is not valid. You can make up for it in the bracha, go back and say it. When you finish the bracha, you can say it before you go to the next bracha. You can make up for it in the Shemaya Tefillah, and in some cases, you might have to go all the way back to the beginning of Shemaya Esrei. This is different than the change that we just had on Shmini Atzeres, when we're not asking for rain, we're just mentioning rain, that we started saying Mashu B'Ruach U'Meir Dageshem instead of Meir Datol. And if somebody by mistake doesn't mention rain, but instead mentions Meir Datol that Hashem gives us dew, then he doesn't have to go back. But if you don't ask for rain, the same Talamata, you have to go back. So putting that out there, that starts this Thursday night. Let's move on with the halachas associated with Chanukah. So when it comes to Chanukah, there's preparations that we need to do before Chanukah, and there's halachas that are associated with Chanukah itself. In terms of the preparations, we of course get ourselves a nice menorah. There's a mitzvah to beautify Zek Helev Aveu, his no lefan of a mitzvah. All mitzvahs are supposed to be beautiful. So a nice menorah, a metal menorah, silver menorah. Um, that's the money for the menorah should not be coming from Meiser money, nor for the oil or the wicks. But we try to get something nice if we can afford it. Some people are very particular. They don't want to use the glass holders, the glass cups that they put into the silver menorah, because they really want to have the hiddur of lighting with a silver menorah. And their argument is, well, we're not lighting with a silver menorah, we're actually using cups. That's an argument. So those who want to be mahadir are welcome to do that. If you have, there's different types of menorah. The Rebbe recommended, the Rebbe said that it makes sense if we're having a menorah for Chanukah, if we're going to be using a menorah with branches, we should make a menorah with diagonal branches, because that's how the menorah was in the Beis Hamikdash. Although this is a Chanukah menorah, not a Beis Hamikdash menorah, but it's best to do it with branches. That's in terms of the menorah itself. Let's move on talking about the oil. So the oil is supposed to be, the person supposed to own the oil. You cannot have oil which is someone else's. First of all, if it's someone else's, could even be stolen, and that's Geneva, so you're not Yosef. But besides for that, it might have to be yours because it's supposed to be yours. So if you're staying in someone's house and he gives you oil, you don't have to make a whole tararam and pick up the oil and make a whole kinyan. That's not customarily done. But you really should make sure if two people are lighting and they're switching each other, I've used yours, you use mine, that could actually be a problem. And there's certain cases where you're joining with someone else's menorah lighting, you might have to even pay them money for the oil. So this is about making sure it's your oil. We use dafka olive oil. It's a mitzvah mufcher. Other things are also okay, but the preferred mitzvah is to use specifically olive oil. Electric candles do not count according to many poskim, and that is what we follow. There are cases where a person is stuck and he has no choice. And they might have to use electric lights, so they will not make a bracha because it's a question of the yates of the mitzvah. They should make sure it's not fluorescent, it's not LED, it's not a lamp that's used throughout the year. So it's obvious that this is specifically for Hanukkah. For example, on the plane, to use the lamps that are made for reading, we should not use those lamps. Use a different electric lamp. Don't hold it in your hand because you're supposed to have the lamp sitting down, placed in its place, and only then is it supposed to be lit. The same with the menorah, you're not supposed to be holding the menorah in your hand. But again, that's not the way we do the mitzvah. Questionable if you're yotzei with an electric, and we don't make a bracha if it's electric, but when people are stuck, they're stuck because they have no other choice. I mentioned olive oil is with the primary mitzvah. Now, in the market of olive oil, there's a lot of forgeries going on. And there's a lot of oil which is claimed to be olive oil, and it's not really olive oil. So there's the actually International Olive Oil Association, there's local olive oil associations, which they put some type of sticker or logo or something on the olive oil to tell you that it's actually real, authentic olive oil. There are also signs you can sometimes tell, taking a sample of the olive oil, you put it into the fridge, you heat it up, you can sometimes tell if it's really olive oil or fake. Not that it actually, we need to have a hechsher on the olive oil. In most cases today, I'm talking about in terms of Chanukah, not in terms of kashrus. in most cases, that wouldn't really be a concern of kashrus, but here we have a different problem. We have a problem for the menorah. It's not a concern of kashrus, but the problem over here is that it might not be olive oil, and you want to do the mitzvah, the hiddur mitzvah, using specifically olive oil. Extra virgin is preferred. Some people are particular to make sure it's extra virgin olive oil, which is made for eating and not for lighting. That's a hiddur that some people have. The purer the oil, the better. Then there is the wicks. The wicks, cotton wicks, are is what's commonly used. Although all wicks are really kosher, but that's what's commonly used. We try to have nice wicks. Floating wicks, some people do not like to use floating wicks because the top of the floating wicks, the wick is coated with wax, and we're trying to light with olive oil. So now you started off lighting with wax. So to prevent that problem, what some people do is they actually dip the floating wicks into oil. So right when you start lighting it, straight away has oil in it, or you burn the wick a bit before. So hold it, make sure that the wax coating melts. Some people have other issues with the floating wicks because it doesn't stay in one place. Although according to halach, all these things would not be a problem. There's ready-made wicks that are bought in the store. The ancient meaning was that people used to prepare the wicks themselves, and some people still have that hiddur. They rather prepare the wicks all by themselves. Of course, if you don't know how to prepare wicks, and the store-bought ones are going to light much better, it's better to buy ready-made store-bought wicks than being a chacham and trying to have this hiddur of making the wicks yourself. Moving on to the candles. There is an argument that says, a theory that says that in order that something should be considered a keli, a ner, has to have a keli. You need to have a dish, a container to put the candle into. That's not the halacha. We don't need to have a keli. A candle per se is perfectly fine. But like we said, it's better to have a menorah. That's not definitely nicer. If you're going to be using wax candles, make sure they're not close to each other. If the menorah it's all on a flat, straight level, all the candles on a straight level, it's not such a big issue. But when they're in a circle or not in a straight level, which as it is supposed to try to make all the candles straight, but if they're not straight, it's best to make sure there's a distance between one candle and another because they melt on top of each other. And talking about that, there's the common menorah candles that are available in the stores that officially burn for half an hour. A lot of them are problematic. They don't actually burn for half an hour. Especially when you're lighting a few candles together, then they burn for less than half an hour. Never mind that there's an hour minute to use to make sure they burn for 50 minutes. But even without hour minute, sometimes they actually don't light for even for the minimum half hour. So the market is available the smaller candles, the real tiny ones that we remember from many, many years ago. And then there's the newer version, a bit larger. Those, of course, better, specifically on Friday when we light earlier. If we're talking about kids, there's room to be lenient and use the tiny ones. Miftzayim, you want to distribute menorah counts for Miftzayim. So if they're going to be lighting on time, nish gefährlich. One candle will burn for half an hour, that's fine. If they're lighting late, for sure, everything is fine. But if people light before the Zman, which we'll talk soon about the Zman of lighting, or Erev Shabbos, at least one candle should burn till half an hour after Shkia, and that's why it's always better to use the larger candles. An important piece of information. There's a lot of confusion about understanding how the mitzvah of Chanukah works. And maybe I should have started with this. The Rambam writes that the mitzvah of Chanukah is mitzvah chaviva ad ma'od. It's a very, very special mitzvah. It's cherished. Every individual has to be careful with this mitzvah. This is a mitzvah which informs people of the nest that Hashem made and gives shevach v'Hashem for this nest. Man or woman, children all have the mitzvah of Chanukah. Even a poor person who has no money has to go borrow. He has to sell his clothing to buy oil, wicks, to be able to light the Ner Chanukah. So this is a mitzvah that everybody has this mitzvah. Now, you could have one person lighting in a family, and some people have that meaning. Women and girls generally do not light, and they're yotza from the master of the house, but they still have the mitzvah. Women were part afhin hoyu ba'isa they were part of the miracle of Chanukah. They had not only they were part of it, they were a primary part of the mitzvah of Chanukah. And if it's a mitzvah, even though it's a mitzvah, a timely mitzvah, it's a mitzvah for men and for women. There's no such thing. My husband has the mitzvah. No, it's your mitzvah. He might be the one lighting, but it's everybody's mitzvah. Now, because it's such a very important mitzvah, there are those that argue that if a person doesn't have a place to light a menorah, they don't have a house. they mechuyev to go and rent or buy a house. Now, even if we're not going to accept that, that common sense says is the mitzvah is to sell your clothing for oil if you have a house. But if you don't have a house, you don't have a mitzvah. But it would be ridiculous to go and get rid of our house, and I'll explain what I mean, and avoid and make ourselves in a position that we don't have the mitzvah any longer. What am I talking about? What does that mean? Somebody's going to get rid of their house, and like this, they won't have the mitzvah. That's about people that are flying. A lot of people, for some odd reason, are flying during the time of menorah lighting. They're flying in such a way that they cannot light the menorah at home. Generally speaking, the mitzvah is for the person to light not be able to through a shlich, but some people can't even have the ability of having a shlich light for them. Some rabbanim say that if somebody bought a ticket and he can't for a flight and he cannot light the menorah, he should go cancel his ticket, even if it cost him a lot of money. Certainly, if the flight is after the time of Hadlakas Ner Chanukah, that's one thing when you fly before the time of the mitzvah, and now it's already the time of the mitzvah and you're stuck on the plane. But certainly, if the time of the flight is when it's already the time of the mitzvah, that becomes a problem. Now there's room for leniencies in various different situations, but I'm talking about the setup, the general setup of setting up your flight in such a way that you're missing out on the mitzvah. Remember, there are those that want to say that even if you don't own a house, you have to buy a house to have the mitzvah. Certainly, you shouldn't be moving away from your house and be stuck without doing the mitzvah. Now, you could light if you're staying in someone else's house, if you're staying there not for an hour for eating a meal, but if that's where you're sleeping, you could light over there. But if a person lights at home and immediately leaves home when it's already shkia time, he's not going to be home anymore. It could even be not your to the mitzvah. It's not your home anymore. You left your home. If you're going to come back home, then you should light at home when you come back, even if it's going to be late at night, as long as people are awake. And we'll talk soon about the times of lighting the menorah. But I'm mentioning this to understand the idea of not missing out the mitzvah. The same thing is for those that are doing Chanukah events. People have always known that the time of menorah lighting is not the right time to do a Chanukah party, a Chanukah event. So Chanukah parties and Chanukah events should be in a way that whoever is participating should be able to light the menorah at home. So from a half an hour before Shkia until the time of nightfall, that's not a time to make a Chanukah party. Never mind that you're not supposed to eat before menorah lighting. Also because the people won't have an opportunity to light the menorah, and you cannot light the menorah at the place of the Chanukah party if this is not your home. More about that later. So flights should not be arranged for these times. Chanukah party should not be arranged. People that have events should schedule those events in a way that doesn't conflict with the mitzvah of lighting the menorah. Now, I want to explain something very important about the setup of the mitzvah. We mentioned earlier that there's a mitzvah on every individual to light the menorah in their home. You can have one person lighting for everyone. There's mahadrin, mina mahadrin, those that are extra pious in the mitzvah. They have every individual in the family lighting. The meaning is that not women and girls, that the mahadrim and mahadrin is only men. Okay, be that as it may. But one person has to light in the family. That is the mitzvah of Chanukah. There's another mitzvah of Chanukah, which is there's a mitzvah to see the candles and hear the brachas. The halacha is that if a person sees a menorah lit, there's a special bracha you make on seeing the menorah. She'asa nisam laviseinu, on seeing a menorah lit. On the first night, also shechiyanu. Now here there's a big, massive debate, and it's not clear what the halacha is. A raging debate if the bracha that you make on seeing the menorah applies also if you were yotze the mitzvah. Now, certainly if you lit the menorah yourself and you made sha'as nisim on your menorah, you go and you see someone else's menorah, you don't make a bracha just by seeing it. But if you were yotze the mitzvah because in your family the menorah was lit for you, now you walk to another place and you see the menorah, do you make a bracha just on seeing it? That's a machlokes. And because it's a machlokes, we have a rule. When there's an argument about making a bracha, making a blessing, we have a rule, safek brachas lahakol. If there's a question whether you should make a blessing or not, we err on the side of caution and we don't make a bracha. So if somebody was yotze the mitzvah, they lit menorah for him at home. The tati lit the menorah for everyone. One of the kids, one of the daughters, went somewhere and she saw menorah. It's a question whether she has to make a bracha or not. The way to get out of the question is to be there when Tati lights the menorah, and we don't have the shaila of what's called birchas haroy, the special bracha for seeing a menorah lit. Certainly, if a person did not have anybody lighting for them, Even if they're not lighting a menorah themselves, they should make a bracha when they see a menorah. Now, is it a question about which menorahs count and when could you make the bracha? The consensus is that even if it's past a half an hour when the menorah is burning, even if it's a menorah in a shul, which is not the mitzvah, we'll get to that in a moment, you could still make the bracha of Birchas Harei, the bracha of Shas Nisim on that. So let's make that clear. There's a mitzvah of lighting the menorah or being yotze with the lighting of a menorah, and there's another mitzvah of hearing the brachas, praising Hashem for the miracles, answering Amen, and seeing candles lit. This mitzvah of seeing the candles is so important that if a person was yotze the mitzvah because a menorah was lit in his house on his behalf, he left home, his wife lit on his behalf, and he was yotze the mitzvah. But he didn't see any menorah because he's in a place where there's no Jews. He should go and light a menorah specifically, not for the purpose of being yotze the mitzvah, for the purpose of making the bracha on seeing the candles. So he would go and he would light a menorah in this place he's stuck with, in a place full of non-Jews. There's no menorahs being lit over there. So go light a menorah, you'll be able to see the menorah, make a bracha, even the bracha l'hadlik Chanukah as well, because you have now a mitzvah to light a menorah in order to be able to see. So I'm emphasizing, the reason I'm emphasizing this, I don't want to confuse people, is about the importance of both having the menorah lit for you, and there's another importance of hearing the brachas and seeing a menorah. There's a third thing, which is a separate thing altogether, a custom, not a halacha, but a custom. And in certain communities, they did not have this custom, a custom to light the menorah in shul. That has nothing to do with the mitzvah of Chanukah. That's not the mitzvah of Chanukah. We're not yotze the mitzvah of Chanukah by being at the menorah lighting in shul. I did say that the concept of seeing the menorah could be accomplished through that, but the mitzvah of lighting the menorah is not accomplished. Just the purpose of lighting a shul is purely for Persum Nissa, for publicizing the miracle. And because this is for publicizing the miracle, we cannot make the bracha on the lighting in shul unless there's 10 people at a time that will be able to see the candles. So there needs to be, at some given time, 10 people there seeing the candles burning. Some people in particular should be even 10 people there when the brachas are made. Now, because this is not the regular menorah lighting, in some places they would allow even children to light a menorah in shul, even though they're not bar mitzvah yet. We're particular, at least ideally, to have a gadol, a bar mitzvah boy, to light the menorah in shul, but it's not the primary mitzvah. It's a different kind of idea. It's an idea of pursuing this. It's nothing to do with the general mitzvah. It's a minhag, and we make a bracha even on something which is a minhag. And the lighting of the menorah in shul has its own set of rules, how we light it, what type of candles, which area we do it. In certain communities, they would make a lot of noise while they lit the menorah in shul. There's videos going around of some places where they've taken that a bit out of hand and throwing things and who knows what during lighting the menorah in shul. The reason for this minhag to make a bit of a disturbance when the menorah is being lit in shul, so people should understand that this is not real menorah lighting. This is a persume nisa thing. This is the same idea. The Rebbe encouraged very strongly that we should do what Miftzah Chanukah, do public menorah lightings. The idea that the Rebbe wanted this public menorah lightings is similar to the idea of lighting in the shul. It's not the menorah of being yotze the mitzvah. It's to publicize the miracle of Chanukah. So if you're going to a public menorah lighting, that doesn't make you be yotze the mitzvah. That's a different thing altogether. In shul, the minhag is we light the menorah earlier than the regular time. We light it after mincha, provided mincha is davened after the time called Plag HaMincha, which in Crown Heights over the days of Chanukah, that's sometime after 3:30. I have written by me 3:32 for the first day. It's always good to add a few minutes just to be safe. And that's why in 770, although the Rebbe's minyan was always at 3:15, on Chanukah, the Rebbe's minyan was a bit later to allow there to already be the time of Plag HaMincha to be able to light the menorah in shul. And again, nobody's yotze over there, including the chazan has to light again. The person who lit the menorah in shul and made the brachas has to light again at home. If he has nobody at home, then he only makes the bracha lahadlik ner Chanukah. He won't say again Shas Nisim Shechiyanu because that he did in shul. The Shas Nisim could be accomplished in shul, but lahadlik, the mitzvah of lighting the menorah, that cannot be accomplished in shul. He has to make it again at home. If he has family members at home and they have to be yotze the mitzvah, then he'll say all three brachas lahadlik ner Shas Nisim and on the first night Shechiyanu as well. The timing of lighting the menorah. So in ancient times, when you used to light the menorah outdoors, it was extremely important to make sure that we light the menorah on time. Nowadays, it doesn't have the same level of importance, but it's still Also very important for multiple reasons to make sure to light the menorah on time. What does on time mean? With the exception of Friday and Matzah Shabbos, on time means immediately after Shkia, after sunset, between Mincha and Ma'ariv. So again, it's always good to add a few minutes, particularly that there's an argument that in this case, Shkia over here means there's two types of Shkia. There's the visible Shkia and the real Shkia. And in this case, not when it comes to not doing work on Shabbos, that starts from the visible Shkia. A lot of people have heard of this idea that there's something called visible shkia and real shkia, shkia nidr, shkia mitzvah, and they think they have a few extra minutes, chas v'shalom, on Erev Shabbos. The purpose of the visible shkia is not to do malacha, any work on Friday, from at least from the visible shkia, and women already from candlelighting time, 18 minutes before that. But when it comes to Chanukah menorah lighting, arguably that refers to the real shkia, which is a few minutes later. And it's always good to add a few minutes just to be safe that it's already after shkia. And that's usually on the nights of Hanukkah, again, in Crown Heights, usually about 4:30, 4:31, depending on the exact night, 4:32. And it's always good, like I said, to add a few minutes after that. This idea of lighting the menorah on time, the Rebbe spoke about it multiple times, and he spoke specifically about when we get Adid and Miftzayim, getting Adid to light the menorah, we should try to make sure that Adid light on time as well. So obviously, we should certainly be careful to light on time. That is done before Ma'ariv, but if a person did not manage to light on time and it's already Ma'ariv time, then Ma'ariv takes precedence to lighting the menorah in terms of time, and therefore one should first have a Ma'ariv and then go and light the menorah. Because lighting the menorah is a mitzvah that has to be done at a certain time, if it is halachos about what you're not allowed to do before you do this mitzvah. Any mitzvah which has to do with a certain time, there's a range of behaviors of things that you're not allowed to do before the mitzvah. A half an hour before lighting the menorah, you're not allowed to start work, you're not allowed to start a meal. If you start, you should really stop. It's really, people that are in stores really should be leaving work and going home to light the menorah. Nowadays, some people are more lenient because we don't light outdoors, but still the right thing is to stop work. You're not allowed to go to sleep then, even if it's temporary sleep, because it's time to light the menorah. If somebody really needs to and he's stuck and they have to eat, so as long as they're eating fruit, any other foods, with the exception of bread or mezainis, it's okay. The pious behavior would be not even to eat food, no drink, no nothing when it comes a half an hour from the time of lighting the menorah, as it is written that Chassidim meaning the early Chassidim, the pious individuals, were careful. They would fast when it comes to any mitzvah, not eat before we mention lulav and esrog, not eat before we light the menorah, before etc. But if somebody is stuck, they need to eat, so they should eat any other food except for hamaitzi or mezainis, or even if it's hamaitzi and mezainis, so long they do not eat more than the amount volume of an egg, a kabea. Learning Torah also should not be done before menorah lighting, but over here there's room to be lenient, not a half an hour before, but from the time of menorah lighting onwards. And you could always have a shomer, someone who's not eating and not learning themselves, to remind that you have to go light the menorah. This restriction on not eating applies to those who are going to be lighting themselves. The girls, the women that are not lighting themselves, they're being yotze the menorah lighting through the father or through the husband. They're allowed to eat even if it came the time of menorah lighting, because the husband is going to be lighting. He'll call them. The problem is there are people that are going to do Miftzah Chanukah, Miftzayim. They didn't light themselves yet. They're going around getting other Yid to light the menorah, and they're going for a few hours, and they get very, very hungry. So the same halachas apply to them too. There's always, today's day and age, we have a range of foods out there which are not mezainis or hamaitzi, and even if you're not going to have this extra midas chasidus to fast, and maybe you shouldn't be fasting if you're going with tzayim, you need to have koyach, but you don't have to eat mezainis or hamaitzi. If they're really stuck and they need to eat, and they're mamish hungry and they can't find other foods, it's within a half an hour of the time. It's not yet the time of menorah lighting, so they can eat at least mezainis, but not bread. Mezainis more than the shir of a kabeh, because it's not yet the time of menorah lighting. If they're really stuck, they'll eat even bread. If they're really stuck and it's already the time of menorah lighting and they need to eat, so there's room for leniency if you need to eat then, so long you didn't come home yet, because once you're home, you got to light the menorah. Once you're out of the home, you can't light them even if you want to, because you're not home. So therefore, if they should make sure they have a shomer that will remind them, have a menorah prepared in your house. So when you come home, you'll remember right away to light the menorah, because the menorah is already prepared. But that's really, one should not rely on all of these leniencies. One should really not eat, at least not eat bread and mezainis more than a shear of a kabeh, the volume of an egg. That's In terms of the time of lighting the menorah, till when can you light the menorah? We said you're supposed to light it after sunset. So the time is till a half an hour later. A half an hour, approximately a half an hour after sunset, is still included in the time of menorah lighting. If you pass that half an hour, then you could even light all night long, ideally before midnight. But even if you pass midnight, you can light all night long until break of dawn, until Alois HaShachar. The problem here is when you're not lighting in the right time, when you're lighting much later, the halacha is you could only make a bracha if your family is awake. If the family members are awake, you cannot make a bracha on the menorah lighting because, according to many opinions, you're not yotze the mitzvah. So if people are sleeping, wake them up. Wake up two people, at least one person. So you should be able to light with a bracha. If they're sleeping, you have to light without a bracha. So although we did say there's room to be lenient, if a person didn't light on time, they can light till a half an hour later. If they didn't light then, they can light until break of dawn, Alois HaShachar. Not sure what the time that is on nights of Chanukah, sometime early in the morning, in the AMs, but that could only be if there are family members that are awake. Now, two important points over here. First of all, I said till break of dawn, but if you have less than a half an hour left till the break of dawn, it's a question if you can make a bracha because it's not going to burn for a full half an hour by night. It's part of the time is going to lead on. So there's some people, for some odd reason, they always do things the last minute. Over here, the last minute is a half an hour earlier. The last minute is break of dawn, but you need it to burn for half an hour by night. So you won't be able to make a bracha if it won't burn for half an hour at night. So you could technically stop making only make a bracha until a half an hour before break of dawn. That's point number one. Point number two, I said to wake up family members. Wake up family members means people that are members of your family. Schlepping a person off the street and saying, "Oh, can you come? Because I just rocked up at home at 3 o'clock and we're going to need someone to be there." That won't work because the mitzvah is to be mafarsim the mitzvah for your family members. The flip side is, on the other hand, we're saying that you can't make a bracha when it's so late and it's past the right time if your family is asleep. But if a person has no family, a widow, someone who lives alone, they have a mitzvah without family. And their mitzvah is they light with a bracha, even if they're lighting late, because their mitzvah is when they're on their own. So this is an interesting thing. Somebody who's on their own can make a bracha all night. Somebody who lives with family or in a dormitory with other bachrim in the dorm that's like family, they have to make sure somebody is awake. Two people, at least one person. Once it's break of dawn, it's over. There's no lighting menorah anymore with the bracha, without a bracha garnish. It doesn't count. It's not the time of lighting the menorah. And what comes to the next night, you don't change the number. You follow the same pattern that everybody else does. If it's the second night of Hanukkah now, you light two candles, even though last night the person didn't light anything at all. If a person, for whatever reason, will not be able to light the menorah on time, then there's an opinion that says that you're allowed to start lighting if they're busy and they won't be able to. They're allowed to start lighting already earlier from the Plag HaMincha time, and that's the time that we mentioned in shuls. They start lighting. It's a different rule. Shuls is a different type of halacha, and they start lighting already from Plag HaMincha approximately 30:30 in Crown Heights. So if a person is in a situation where, for whatever reason, they will not be able to light in the regular time, they could start lighting the menorah from the time of Plag HaMincha. However, they have to make sure there's enough oil that it will burn for the full amount of time till a half an hour after nightfall. Now, this heter is a heter that is an opinion that says so. It's only if a person is busy and desperate and doesn't have another choice. Poskim say if a person relies on this leniency when he's not desperate, then he's doing an isser. And therefore, some places say, in this case, you don't make a bracha. And some places can say, in general, if a person lights from Plag HaMincha onwards, he doesn't make a bracha. And it's better to have someone else light for you in the real time than you lighting from Plag HaMincha. That's how serious this is. Certainly, it's better to light yourself later in the night than lighting from Plag HaMincha, because Plag HaMincha is not the ideal, right, correct time. The question we often get is that someone is lighting them later on time, but he can't wait the full half an hour. He has to go back to time. His car, his bus, his tank is leaving. The minig is to stay a half an hour near the candles. He doesn't have time to wait a half an hour. What's my choice? I could either light on time and it won't be a half an hour. Or I could come back and light later, but I'll be able to stay for half an hour. No, you should light on time. Don't push off, delay the time, because the time of lighting is critical. Stay a bit. You can't stay half an hour. Stay for a few minutes. Even on other Shabbos, it says we don't stay the half an hour. A bit you could stay. But if you can't stay, you could always have someone else stay there, have a shomer. A shomer is for two reasons. Shomer is A, so someone should be there for half an hour, but also sakana. You can't leave candles burning on their own, leaving them staying there, and you walked out of the house. That's a problem. So you should have someone else there. Where do we light the menorah? So we light it, as we mentioned, nowadays we light it indoors. The person, the publicity is for the people in the house. It's not for the people in the street. And because in those days they lit it near the door, so we also light it near the door within a tefach of the door, the way it was done in those days, although it's indoors. In Miftzayim, some people are not very comfortable if we want them to light the menorah near the door and they want to light it on the table. So if we have no choice, we can light it on the table, but don't light it in a place where normally candles are normally put throughout the year because it's not noticeable for the mitzvah. The Gemara says when it was a time of danger, they allowed them to light it on their table. So we follow that principle when we have no choice when we're lighting for someone in Mitzrayim and they don't want to light it by the door or by the window for those who have that custom. But again, it shouldn't be in a place where candles are normally lit. The Rabbeim were very particular in that it should not be by the window. And the Rebbe wrote that those who light by the window sometimes they actually are trying to accomplish the gain of having publicity for the street, and sometimes they're losing out more than they're gaining. There's a lot to be said about menorahs lit by the window, but then there's people in the window can't see. There's people across the window is very high; it's above 20 amma. People in the family can't see because the menorahs are back. So there's some minuses anyhow in lighting by the window, but either way, that's not our meaning. Our meaning is to light it by the door, not by the window. We were talking until now about where to light the menorah. We were referring to where in the house. In which house do we light the menorah? Person can have more than one house. So the halacha is a person has two houses or two rooms in the same house. Most of us have more than one room in our house. We light in the room that we're eating in. So there's sleeping rooms and eating rooms. We light in the eating rooms, not in the sleeping rooms. But within eating rooms, that's a room that you eat on a regular basis. If a person is eating temporarily, just going to eat in someone else's house supper, then you can't light it because it's not your house. If you have a regular arrangement, I eat always in this house and I sleep always in that house, then the house we eat takes priority. The Rebbe asked specifically, encouraged, since there's a mitzvah of being mechanech our children, and we're mechanech children to light Chanukah candles from when they're the age of chinuch, the custom became to already educate them even younger age, and they should do it in a way of mahadrim and a mahadrin. The Rebbe asked specifically we should have menorah lighting at the kids' rooms, which is their sleeping room, which is their tzivus Hashem room. The Rebbe said it's not a sleeping room, even though we're supposed to light in a place of eating, not a place of sleeping. For them, it's a tzivus Hashem room. It's a migdash ma'at. It's their base on migdash. That's where they do Torah. That's where they do tefillah. That's where they do tzedakah. So the Rebbe specifically asked we should do that. Obviously, it should be done in a way that it's 100% safe. Bachram in yeshiva is a different story. Normally we say that there's the eating room versus the sleeping room, and the eating room takes priority. Bachram Yeshiva, there's an advantage in the dormitory room because the eating room is not really the place they eat. That's like their restaurant. Nobody stays there. You come in there, you get your meals, and you go. And Bachram would, of course, prefer if the meals are being brought to them in the zal or the meals are being brought straight up to bed to their bedrooms. So there's a lot of poskim, of contemporary poskim that say that Bachram should be lighting in the dorms, of course, in a manner that it's absolutely safe. The Rebbe told, there was a Yechidus, the Rebbe told a student in university that she should light in her bedroom in university. So there's something to be said about lighting in the bedroom. Girls in seminaries need to arrange in their apartments where they're living to light over there, not in the dining room, certainly not in the house of one of the Hanhola members, because that's not their house. In a way, for girls, the dining room is even worse to light than it is for Bachrim. They cannot be yotze with their father lighting if the father is. First of all, it's a question. Bechlal to be yotze with their father's lighting if you're not home. It's a second question on top of that when it's a different time zone, the seminary in a different country. We might get back to that. So they light in their apartment. People that have shared apartments, what we have is that one person lights on behalf of everyone. Idea in order to avoid any shiles, it's best that they should all chip in into the for the oil, for the candles or whatever it is. Everybody has a part of it, and I even better is every night another girl will have a chance to light the menorah. I want to read out a quote from the Taz on Shulchan Aruch. I think this is very important. A lot of people make this mistake. We emphasize it a few times, but I want to read out the quote. The Taz writes that if somebody has a house in town, and he's going once out of the house and he's going to eat by his friend, it is obvious that he should not abandon his own home and go eat in the house where he's eating just as a one-off dinner at his friend. He has to go back home and light in his own house. Eating in a place for an hour or two and then you're coming home, there's no logic whatsoever, says the Taz, to light the menorah over there. It's like as if you're standing in the middle of the street, which makes no sense. Ein shaykh lo shem hadlaka, the concept of lighting doesn't make sense in the street. Now he says there's no such thing as lighting in the street. He's not talking about the mitzvah. There's an Indian of Persum Nissa that Rebbe asked to put public menorah lightings in the street. Taz is talking now about the mitzvah of Chanukah that you can't do in the street, as we mentioned earlier. So same way in the street you can't do the mitzvah, you can't do it in someone else's house. It's just like the street. I've seen people that are eating dinner at a friend and they ask someone to send their candles there. These people are making a mistake. They don't understand what we're saying over here. So this thing that people made this mistake is already around hundreds of years. The Taz already mentions this behavior that people will light the menorah at the Hanukkah party. And the Taz says it's a mistake. Einam avinim davar zeh. People don't understand that's wrong. If a person by mistake went and lit the menorah on the first night of Hanukkah in someone else's house, he was not Yotzei his mitzvah. He should come home, he should light again the menorah at home, except for Shas Nisim Shechiyanu, which he doesn't have to repeat again. But if a person lit the menorah on the first night and the second night he realized, oh, I'm supposed to light at home, then he should not, again, he shouldn't make Shechiyanu on the second night. I mentioned earlier that women have the mitzvah of Hanukkah too, but the minig is minig Chabad, and Sefer HaMahagim it says that girls do not light their own menorah. That was a general meaning of Beis Harav, not older girls, not younger girls. They were yotze through the father, through the husband. If a woman does not have a husband, her husband is not lighting at home, whatever it is, then she has to light the menorah herself, have a shlich to light for her. The shlich has to be an adult, obviously not a child. The Frierdiker Rebbe related that the Rebbe Rashab would sometimes leave his home before Hanukkah, and he would ask Rebbe Steiner Sarah that she should light the menorah herself in that case. There were times that the Rebbe specifically asked about gave an instruction about women lighting, but that wasn't the general Hira. The general Hira over the years was that girls do not light the menorah. Guests that are staying in someone's house, so they could be mekayim the mitzvah of Hanukkah in the with the menorah that's being lit in their own home, but they still have the mitzvah of seeing the candles. The minig is not to rely on the menorah lighting that's in your house, and a guest that had the menorah being lit in his own home lights again in the house where he's staying to be machmer and lights any over there. But besides for that, it's important that he sees the candles. If he doesn't have anybody lighting at home, then he's mechuyev to light the menorah over here, or at least participate in the oil, so he becomes part of the mitzvah in the place where he's staying. Unless he's not just a guest, but he became part of the family. He's a permanent guest. He eats there, he stays, eats there, sleeps there, whatever. People are in the hospital and cannot light over there, so they'll have to rely on the menorah lighting that's happening at home. It's recommended that they should at least light also an electric menorah, like we mentioned earlier, the details of electric menorah, but without a bracha. People that are traveling, so we mentioned already, you should make sure your trips on such a way that you don't have a problem of menorah lighting. Sometimes people are stuck, they cannot cancel the flight. So some people say you have to cancel the flight. But they can light in their home after Shkia, that's great. If they're getting to the place with their landing, it's before Alois HaShachar, before break of dawn, they'll light in the place where they're landing, they're going to be staying over there, and the family is up there. If the family members are up there, that's the place they're staying, they light there. Lighting from Plaga Mincha is really problematic, especially it's not ideal, but if you're stuck, you can light from the Plaga Mincha time because you have a flight tonight. But there needs to be people that are staying at home, because if nobody's staying at home and everybody's flying and you light from Plaga Mincha, never mind the safety issue, that's one issue. But besides for that, it's no longer, it's supposed to be burning and there's still members of the family that are home. Not everybody left and it's no longer their home. There's People could be lighting in a car. People could light in a plane. It's obviously illegal, so that's practically not possible. They might have to light an electrical candle on the plane without a bracha. The airport is not a place to light the menorah. You're not yotzei the mitzvah of lighting the menorah in the airport. Same if you're driving and you don't want to light in your car, understandably. So you stop somewhere on the side of the road, a gas station, you're not yotzei the mitzvah. It's persumanis, that's great, but the mitzvah has to be done in your house. Arguably, the plane is like your house. You can argue that the car is like your house. But the airport is not like your house. So there is an inyan to see candles. And if you won't see any candles, there's a mitzvah to light a menorah with brachas to be able to see the menorah of Chanukah. But the mitzvah, you cannot be yotzei that way. And Bechlal, as mentioned earlier, the right thing is that the whole family should get together when the menorah is being lit. That's how we publicize the miracle. In fact, in some places, they scheduled menorah lighting right before supper, because that's when the family gets together. And it's worthwhile even waiting to and not light the menorah on time, so everybody should be there. If somebody's for some reason cannot be at home, so at least, and they're being yotzei from the menorah at home, at least they should hear it, the brachas, in another place. We light the menorah, we wear a gartel, men wear a gartel when they light the menorah, and but we do not, it is not our minute to wear Shabbos clothing. We light the menorah on the right near the door on the left side. Unless there's no mezuzah on the right side, then we light it on the right side, and we put the menorah within. Instead of putting it in a tefach near the door, we try to put the menorah actually in the doorway. We put the menorah on a chair. There's no particular order if the menorah is facing north, east, west, south. That's not really an issue. The menorah cannot be in a place where there's wind. If a person lit the menorah in a place where there's wind and it got extinguished, it's almost as if you didn't put in oil, and therefore you have to relight the menorah and put in a full amount of oil again, because whatever was lit till now didn't really count. You just don't make a bracha on that. The menorah has to be a certain height. It's not supposed to be above 10 tfachim, and it's supposed to be above 3 tfachim. So approximately 30, 31 inches should be below 30 inches, and it should be above 10 inches. Now that's a bit of a safety issue because it's low and little kids can reach that. So some people will light the menorah above 10 tfachim, above 31 inches, and you're still yotzei, unless it's above 20 amma, which is who knows how many feet, 30 feet, then you're not yotzei. But really, even though one is yotzei, the mitzvah fulfills the mitzvah. If they light it above 30 inches, 31 inches, really the mitzvah is to do it under 10 tefachim. Now the question is how we measure this. If we measure it with the menorah, we measure with the candles. If at least part of the menorah is below 10 tefachim, some people are machmer all of the menorah. But again, if there's an issue with kids, so we have no choice. We have to rely on all these leniencies if there's an issue of kids playing with the menorah. When we put the menorah down, we make sure there's a shamish with which we're going to light all the candles. Our custom is that the shamish is made out of beeswax, not out of oil, and it's higher, taller than the rest of the candles. And if there's many people lighting, each one makes their own shamish, and the shamish should be in a place that you could see it. And should not extinguish the shamish after we finish lighting. We keep the shamish there. You're not supposed to light the candles until the candles are in their place. You're not supposed to hold the candles and light it as you're holding it. And we light the first one on the right, and the second night we move from left to right. The shama should be lit before we make the bracha. We hold it with our right hand, unless we're talking about a lefty. We make the bracha standing. Ideally, we should light the menorah standing also, and we light in a way we make sure it illuminates most of what's sticking out of the wick. The part of the wick that's sticking out from the oil should be burning. And after we finish all the lighting, all the candles that we're supposed to light, we say Haneris Halolu. We don't make any hefsek from the bracha until we finish lighting all the candles. Make sure you put in a full amount of oil, because if a person did not have the right amount of oil in the beginning, could be he's not yotzei. He has to extinguish it and re-put in the right amount of oil. A very, very important piece of information is safety. I want to go through a few details about safety. First of all, make sure the menorah is in a flat, straight surface. Marble surface, glass surface, metal surface. You could put silver foil in the place where the menorah is. Make sure it's in the center of the surface, not on the side. Make sure it's far away from anything which is flammable, like a tablecloth, a curtain, books, papers. Make sure the menorah is sitting in a stable way, it won't turn over easily. There's sometimes candlesticks that fall apart, that don't sit very, very well. Make sure it's in a place that kids won't be able to reach. Make sure that kids understand we don't rush by when there's candles there. If people have gartlach, parts of gartlach that are hanging out, long dresses, these things can create sakanas nefashis. We're always supposed to have a proper shmir, a proper caution, an adult watching where the menorah is. Leaving kids without any supervision near lit candles is extremely dangerous. Kids should not have any access to a lit menorah, to matches, to lighters, etc. When kids are lighting the menorah, an adult should be there. Long hair should be pulled back together. Kids that are wearing shirts should have the sleeves of the shirt in such a way that it's close to themselves. And if people are leaving home or going to bed after the menorahs are lit, they should check well that all the windows are closed. There's no wind coming from anywhere which could make the menorah fall. There's nothing near the menorah that could get onto fire. It's much better to extinguish the candles after the full shear than leaving candles without any proper shmira. Make sure you have a smoke alarm, which is a cheap apparatus to have in your house, but could literally save life, and it could tell people when there's a fire. As mentioned, the minig is that we stay near the candles at least for half an hour. Our minig is that it burns for 50 minutes, but we stay at least for half an hour. And part of the staying there, besides that you're supposed to listen to what the candles are telling you and learn in the light of the menorah, etc., but well, more correctly, you're not supposed to use the lights of the menorah for anything else. You're supposed to learn near the menorah. You have the lights of the shamash and the electric light there. But we stayed if half. One of the reasons for the staying half an hour is also for safety. If a candle extinguished in the middle of the shear of the 50 minutes, strictly speaking, you don't have to relight it. But the minig is to do the proper mitzvah, and the minute we do relight it again, but without a bracha. If, however, it didn't burn very well because it wasn't catching onto the wick, then you have to relight it because that means it's almost as if you didn't light it properly to begin with. You let to move the menorah after the 50 minutes, even the candle is still burning. If for safety reasons, then you should move it even earlier, but try not to move it too far. And lechatchila, make sure you light it in such a way that you won't have to move it afterwards. I want to go back to what I said a minute ago, make sure I clarify. You're not supposed to use the light of the menorah for anything else. You're not supposed to use the light of the shamash also. Therefore, we have an extra candle, in our case, electricity, and therefore, when we're doing anything near the menorah, it's not considered that we're benefiting from the menorah. We don't light the shamash candle from the lit menorah candles because we don't use them for anything else. After 50 minutes, you're allowed to extinguish the candles. Some are machmer, but again, safety would override that. According to the strict halacha, there's no problem extinguishing the candles after 50 minutes. The minig is the women have the minig; they don't do any work for 50 minutes from the time of lighting menorah. After 50 minutes, then they could do any malacha, just not to the light of the candles. What's called malacha? What's called work? Sewing, weaving, laundry, ironing, cleaning the floor, cooking, baking, those are not really a problem. I mean, women are so permeated, the Rebbe writes in the letter, that women are so permeated with the message of Chanukah that they have no connection with work during the time of menorah lighting. The Rebbe the Shabbat sit and learn Torah near the candles, and the Rebbe spoke many times the lesson that we're supposed to learn from this to increase in Torah and Chanukah. Chanukah candles have a very special kedusha attached to them, and therefore we're very careful while the candles are burning not to be involved in divrei chol in narishkeiten. So we take that into account. Besides forgetting ourselves to light the menorah, we get other people to light the menorah. Men, children, everybody should light their own menorah. And that's why the Rebbe asked to make a persuma nissa do in the most public place, light the menorah so people should know about the mitzvah. And we encourage people at the public menorah lightings to light in their own homes and announce that they're not yotze with this public menorah lighting, they should really light in their own homes. So if we're going to a person's business place, and we wanted to publicize the miracle over there, so he's not yotz because it's not his home. But if you want to do it for persumanistic, he has to be in a place that 10 people, 10 yidden in one go will be able to see the menorah. Otherwise, you can't make a bracha. It's better, instead of lighting in the store, give them menorahs that they should light at home, because sometimes you you go to someone's store and light them, and he thinks he did the mitzvah already. When we're doing mitzvahim and we're going to someone's house and a child is lighting the menorah, an adult cannot be yotza. So we should not have the children light the menorah. If a child lit the menorah, then the adult should light again without a bracha. Unless the adult wasn't planning to fulfill the mitzvah through the child, then he could light himself even with a bracha. Chanukah, there's a mitzvah to eat sudas. These are days of simcha. There's at least some level of a mitzvah to eat a suda. We thank Hashem. We sing praises to Hashem. And when you do that for sure, it's a sudas mitzvah. The Rebbe spoke many times about Fabringena, Chanukah, making Halachos Toivos, sitting together with the family. And somebody who's in a stage of mourning is allowed to join a Chanukah party if it's in their own home, if they're doing shiras, tishbachas, and singing to Hashem, etc. There are special foods that people eat on Chanukah, latkes, donuts. I just want to mention one thing about the donuts. I'm not going to go through all the details, but there are donuts that are baked. It's very common today's day and age. Donuts are not fried, and if they're baked, they really are hamoitzi or ambichas hamazon, unless it has the majority of it is other liquids, not water or oil. In that case, it will be mizainis. But even then, if you're eating a fixed amount, the kviya suda, it turns into hamaitzi. So important to recognize that. The bracha of Sha'asa Nisim and Shechiyanu is set for the menorah lighting. We don't make a bracha for the day of Chanukah because it's not a Yom Tov that we say Shechiyanu on the Yom Tov itself. So there's a person that cannot light menorah, did not light, will not see menorah lighting. No one's going to light for him. He does not make Sha'asa Nisim Shechiyanu. You meet a guy in Meftzayim, he's not interested in menorah, but at least he should make Sha'asa Nisim Shechiyanu for the Yom Tov. There's no such thing. Now, if a person is stuck and he cannot light menorah lighting, so at least what they can do is they can put on a new garment or eat a new fruit and say Shechianu on that and have in mind the fruit, the garment, and also the fact that it's Chanukah. Chanukah, we say Hallel, Shalom, the entire Hallel. All the rules of Hallel apply to Chanukah. In some ways, Chanukah's Hallel is more than regular Hallel. The custom in many places is that ladies do not say Hallel. The Rebbe wrote, there's a letter, an unsigned letter of the Rebbe that we have about this. But if they could say Hallel, of course, that would be better. Comes the second night of Chanukah, we start lighting two candles. The only change we'll make is we don't say Shechiyanu. And as I mentioned, the second candle is it's left to right. There's different minhagim if you reuse the wicks, you don't reuse the wicks from last night. Certainly, if they're not burning it, they're not good anymore. For sure, we shouldn't use the wicks from last night. And since it's more than one candle, we wait to say Haneres Alol till after we finish lighting all the candles together. There's a minig of giving Chanukah geld on Chanukah. The Rebbe Rashab would give Chanukah geld on the fourth or the fifth night. The Rebbe in the year Tavshim Ches asked that we should give every night Chanukah geld. The Rebbe spoke a lot about Chanukah geld, and that's how we make the simcha for the children, and we give them more than they imagine we're going to give them, and the Rebbe get so excited, and they understand through this, they're going to learn more Torah. The Rebbe spoke a lot about the importance of Chanukah geld. So then the Rebbe spoke about giving every night, except for Friday night, of course. Together with the idea of Chanukah, which is one thing, there's also the idea of tzedakah. Chanukah is a time to increase in tzedakah, but there's also something special about connecting the kids' simcha. Adults should also get Chanukah geld. That Tzemach Tzedek would give Chanukah geld to adults even after they were married. Sons-in-laws, daughter-in-laws, etc. There's a special thing about Chanukah geld, and if a person has Chanukah geld, obviously should be giving meiser from the Chanukah geld. Erev Shabbos Chanukah is a very busy day. You need to make sure that you light the menorah on time before Shabbos comes in. Mincha is davened first, and then we light Chanukah candles, and then we light Shabbos candles, unless a person doesn't have an early minyan, so they'll light Chanukah menorah first, and then go to shul to daven Mincha. It's important to finish all your preparations for Shabbos in advance, before Chanukah candles are being lit, so everybody should be present at the time of lighting, and the women that are lighting candles should wait to light their Shabbos candles until all the candles were lit, not just be there for one candle being lit. First Chanukah candles, then Shabbos candles, and we try to light earlier than the time of Lich Benchen, the Chanukah candles, will be enough time to light Shabbos candles before the time of Lich Benchen. If somebody's eating out for Shabbos, so eating out, you can't light them in the place you're eating out. But if you're staying for Shabbos, you go to the Shver and the Shviga to follow on model for Shabbos. So that's your place for Shabbos. Then you can light the menorah on Friday afternoon, and you could also light the menorah there on Matzah Shabbos because it still is your home. There's an advantage in your own home. We're going to be coming home later, but it depends when you're going to come home. So if you want, you could light the menorah in the place you stayed for Shabbos, even if you're not planning to sleep there on Matzah Shabbos because it still is your home. You want to be machmer, light it when you get back home, but don't wait until after midnight. And if it's after midnight already and you didn't light and you came home, as long as people are awake, then as we mentioned, as long as people are awake till the break of dawn, you're allowed to light. Going back to the So I mentioned Friday and I mentioned Matzah Shabbos. I want to go back a bit to the halachas of Friday lighting. The candles have to be burning until 50 minutes after Shkia, half an hour after Tzeis approximately, and you're not yet to the mitzvah otherwise. So it's important to make sure you do the candles on a safe place. You can't do anything once Shabbos comes in, and they're burning there properly. Now, because there's issues of moving the menorah on Shabbos, so there's solutions to put something on the tray, or at least on the chair. Some people say the tray won't work. Something which is more expensive than the candles, like a challah that's needed for Shabbos. So you should be able to move the chair afterwards on Shabbos. This only works if the purpose of moving this is because you need the area to use the area, you need to pass by, not because you want to protect the menorah. So there is that heter of putting something on top of the chair. Alternatively, if the candles are out already, you could move the candles with your legs, with your elbow, with the back of your hand. If you need to place them in the menorah, you can ask a guy to move it. So there are those who turn them as well because there could sometimes be a safety issue of having a menorah in one place throughout the entire Shabbos. Shabbos this year is also Rosh Chodesh. It's Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, and Chanukah. Important to remember all of those things. We say the special tefillah of Atu Yitzarta at Musaf, and has all the Rosh Chodesh halachas associated there. And from there we move on to Matzah Shabbos. Matzah Shabbos we light the menorah only after Shabbos is over. We go home as soon as possible, not to push off the lighting of the menorah properly. We first make Havdalah, then we light the menorah, and then we go and we finish and we say V'yidon Lecha. And again, we make sure that it burns for at least for candles burn always at least for 50 minutes. And the last day of Chanukah, Zois Chanukah, is when all the Hashpah of Chanukah comes in, and this is the Rebbe calls it the battle attack, the full attack on the Yetzer Hara is on Zois Chanukah when we have all 8 candles burning. The oil that's left over that were in the wicks, in the glasses, not the oil in the bottle, needs to be burnt. Oil wicks because they were set aside for a mitzvah. The glasses should be rinsed out, and we shouldn't eat the glass you want to throw out. So do it wrap it properly. Don't do it in a way that's in a way of bizayin and not an appropriate manner. That's in terms of all of Hilchas Chanukah. Wishing everyone over here should have a freiliche Chanukah. We should be able to see the Chanukah associated with Chanukah's Beis Hamikdash. We should see the Beis Hamikdash Hashlishi. We should see how they light the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. Lasad Lover. We're all going to be lighting the menorah outdoors, and there's also going to be there's going to be the lighting of the menorah Beis Hamikdash with liquidators bechasas kachecha. Maybe we say with that take it from Yad Mamish and Yishakoyach for all the organizers of this year.